land with the Steelers?
There hasn't been any progressive conversations. I love Mike, and Mike and I have kept in contact over the years. I've had conversations with Omar. I really, I think Omar, enjoyed having me there. I think the guys, had a positive response, to our time together. But again, there hasn't been any deadline set on me. There hasn't been any contract, floated in front of me for me to well, we're giving you till, March the 8th to make a decision on this contract. There's been nothing to that respect.
I think Brooke and I both watched every minute of this interview. Wide-ranging, very interesting, well done. We welcome in our Steelers reporter, Brooke Pryor. Brooke, what are you hearing about the Steelers' plan at quarterback this coming season?
Well, Laura, what you just heard from me was a deep sigh because despite General Manager Omar Khan saying at the NFL Combine just a week ago that he didn't think it was going to go this year like it went last year with Aaron Rodgers drawing out this decision, that sounded a lot like a guy that we heard just a year ago talking about that there's not a deadline, he's enjoying his free time, he likes spending time with his wife. The Steelers' approach is similar to what it was last year. They're hoping that Rodgers decides he wants to come back for another year. If that doesn't work out, maybe they could draft a quarterback. I would be very surprised if they took one in the first round, although at the NFL Combine, they did have formals with Ty Simpson, Drew Aller, and Carson Beck. So they're doing their homework. They've also got Will Howard, a 6th-round pick from a year ago, on the roster. They really like him. I've talked to people in the building. They really like his smarts, how he is above the neck. Still have to see what he's like below the neck. His arm is great. Footwork still needs some work, but he didn't get a lot of work a year ago because he missed most of the season with that fractured pinky. So Aaron Rodgers is the hope. Beyond that, there's a lot of hoping and praying going on in Pittsburgh.
Interesting. Yeah, you're going to be waiting this whole thing out. And by the way, Rodgers was telling Pat just how much he likes Will Howard. So high endorsement there. We appreciate you, Brooke, for stopping by here. Let's talk about the Ravens a little bit more. They're hoping 2026 can finally be the year they get over that playoff hump. New head coach, Jesse Minter. Still plenty of roster questions to be answered this offseason, from tight end Isaiah Likely to perhaps the top center in free agency. Everybody's talking about three-time Pro Bowler Tyler Linderbaum. There's a lot of teams that need him, right? Kevin, what should Baltimore be making as its priority here in free agency?
Pass rush, pass rush, pass rush. Okay, obviously.
Good job. Saying that 3 times fast.
They had the 4th lowest pass rush rate in the entire NFL last year. That should never happen in Baltimore. Obviously, they got to replace, if they lose Tyler Linderbaum, a center, but then other than that, it's front 7. Jeremy Fowler reported that maybe they go after a 3rd safety because Jesse Minter likes those kind of looks, but really, they're going to be shopping in the bargain bin. Maybe it's a Khalil Mack. Maybe it's a Calais Campbell, a veteran like that you can get for cheap, but they've got to generate pressure on the quarterback or else it's going to be another mediocre season in Baltimore.
If anybody at home tried to say pass rush 3 times fast, I love you for doing that. All right, new on NFL Live from Adam Schefter. Lions left tackle Taylor Decker announced on IG that he requested and will be released by the Detroit Lions. Tim, is this a big loss for an already depleted Detroit O-line?
I do think it's a big loss. Now, obviously, he's been in the league for a decade. He's not, the same exact player that he was earlier in his career. But look, I think that he fit the identity of what, the Lions like to do offensively. And look, if you're going to be a physical, run the ball football team, be aggressive on short yardage situations, you better be good up front with your
latest on which teams could be in the
offensive line looks drastically different. And so remaking it can be difficult. So I think it will have to be a strong effort both in free agency and in the draft to rebuild the offensive line to get the kind of the physicality, back that they had when, quite frankly, probably the second year that Dan Campbell was in Detroit.
Anytime you go from a strength to a weakness, offensive line in Detroit being so good the past few years, you have an identity problem. There were 2 stats I saw that should scare every Lions fan, coach, player, and those are: they had way less explosive runs last year. That's an offensive line stat. And teams were pressuring Jared Goff much quicker last year than in 2024. That's obviously an offensive line stat. So now to rebuild on the fly with a lot of expensive guys in Detroit, you're going to have to be shopping in the draft and then in the bargain bin in free agency. That's worrying to me, especially in a division with a lot of good teams.
An ankle injury last year that prevented him from playing all year. Now he moves on from Houston. Meanwhile, the Texans also guaranteed money in Danielle Hunter's deal. A lot of extra money for Danielle Hunter, about $40 million extension for the 2027 season, all guaranteed up there. He's been one of the more productive pass rushers, and he gets paid like it as well. And take a look at all the moves that the Texans made this week, extending Danielle Hunter, extending Trent Brown on a one-year deal, acquiring David Montgomery, trading Titus Howard to the Cleveland Browns, and they're not done just yet. They'll have more major moves ahead, and maybe the next major move for the Houston Texans, and I don't think it's too early to put it on the bottom line right now. The Houston Texans are expected to sign Will Anderson to a huge new deal. I would think that would happen here at some point in the coming weeks, but that deal with Will Anderson and the Texans will get done, we think, and he will be tied to Houston. They're not going to let one of the best players in all of football leave. They want him there for a long time, and their intent is to keep him there for a long time with a new deal on the horizon.
So well deserved. Hold on to that guy, right? The Texans, Tim, I mean, they've been making moves. We had a whole graphic there filled up of all the moves, but have they done enough to help C.J. Stroud and the offense? Because that's been the real issue.
Well, I think Montgomery is going to be a lot of help. He's a very good back. It's why they, you think about all the free agent running backs about to hit the market. They obviously, felt good about him to make a trade to acquire David Montgomery. And that, I do think they need to do other things up front. You just look at the investments, when you look at like the Houston Texans, how they're built. Got a bunch of guys that entered into the league as first-round draft picks on the defensive line. You have any on the offensive line. And I just think that, when you do that over time, when you aren't, drafting and developing guys that you draft extremely high, then it can come back to get you if you're not, continuing to try to find, avenues to build your offensive line. He's not a guy that moves around extremely well, and so I do think that, when you look at ways they can help him, it's certainly investing in the front on the offensive side of the ball.
Tim makes 100% great points, and so I'm just going to repeat what he said, but louder, and talk with my hands while doing it. No, the offensive line is a problem. It is the problem. It's the fatal flaw. It's the reason they have a Super Bowl caliber defense, but there is no chance that they win the AFC as presently constructed. C.J. Stroud has not taken the jumps we thought he would, and part of that is bad luck. You need receiving help and receiving health in order to do that, but also it's the offensive line and it's the running game. I don't think David Montgomery is going to appreciably change this offense unless they get a rabbit out of a hat in free agency or in the draft. It's really hard to shop on the bargain bin, in free agency with offensive line help. They do not become available, and if they do, it is expensive. I don't see this offense taking a leap. It's going to be more of the same division round type of losses unless some miracle happens on the O-line.
Man, I mean, it feels like, too, the last two seasons, they've just been kind of shipping these O-linemen away, trying to find that right mix for C.J. Stroud.
Different does not mean better, and they thought that maybe every year different meant better. It doesn't.
Different OC. I mean, there's so many different things they're trying to do for Stroud. They've got to figure it out because I still believe the talent is there. Okay, coming up next, we're talking about A.J. Brown. Adam Schefter hinting that the chatter around him is heating up. Adam will tell you more. The